Welcome to the Subway Conversation Chat. With us now entering a second week of exciting baseball coverage, I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and I'm here to discuss some New York baseball with you all and with my co-host, Joe Dalio. So without further hesitation, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
All right, it is going very well, Jamie. Good to see you again here, and good to talk to our audience that's watching here. So we plan on putting a good show together for you here today. So definitely glad to be here. Can't believe we're already talking like getting into the third week of the season. Moving along very quick, but so far an excellent baseball season as we expected.
Hey, it's moving along quick, literally and figuratively. It's moving quick with the pitch clock, and it's also moving fast because as we get older, time just goes fast.
It does,
So,
and
what a
I could
coincidence.
certainly relate to that older thing, but I'm still a 25-year-old at heart here. So, but yes, you're right. It definitely goes fast.
Yeah, and I'm still like 18 at heart
Yeah.
at 27, but that's not it's good though. It keeps you young like that while you as you get older. You want that. So
That's right.
mm. so as we discussed backstage, we're gonna be talking all baseball news. So Joe, you must be relieved that your Mets finally got their first win against the Detroit Tigers last week, and I'm sure you like to talk about that and your Mets news as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Would you like to start it off?
Yeah, I'd love to start it off. What I'll do is I'll just share a little bit of Mets news here, and then I'll throw it back to you for some Yankees news. And then I got a whole bunch of Mets statistics after that, which I'd be happy to share, as far as players and things like that. But really, yeah, definitely a relief to get the first win. I said last week a lot of parallels between the 2005 team where Willie Randolph was the manager of the Mets, and that was his first season. And the Mets started 0-5 that season with a good roster, a team that maybe had a chance at playoffs in the beginning of the season when predictions were made. This team, the same. I mean, most people, including myself, predicting that they don't make the playoffs, but a team certainly that has the potential to do so. And to get off to an 0-5 start against mediocre opponents certainly was a concern. And, the way it happened as far as you couldn't hit a beach ball, and at the time. So certainly to get the first win definitely is, to get off the schneid, as they say. And playing well since, or playing better since in any way. And like I said, I'll talk about that, after I go over some things. But most of the news for the Mets this week has to do with the bullpen and the pitching rotation a little bit. They picked up Julio Teheran, who probably a little bit past his prime, but again, with several starting pitchers injured for the Mets, they're looking for all the help they can get. And they picked up Teheran. And welcome back to the Major League Baseball here. Your first assignment is to go against your old team, the Atlanta Braves, who has a more powerful offense than when he was there. But, he had a tough time. He only pitched a couple innings, gave up 6 hits, 4 earned runs, a few strikeouts. But then, excuse me, but then after that, I mean, I didn't see that game, so I don't know if he was totally ineffective. I mean, those are some of the numbers that he had. But they designated him for assignment after that, So I don't know what that was all about, or maybe they weren't impressed by something. And hard to judge somebody, pitching against the Atlanta Braves, for potentially the best offense in baseball. That's like judging a pitcher on his first performance pitching at Coors Field in July. It's kind of, a little bit of an unfair assessment. But again, they saw things that I guess they didn't like, and he's no longer with the team. Some relief pitching moves. And the first show we did, I was talking about some of the biggest position battles had to do with the bullpen and like the middle relief. And there was a spot open. There was 2 spots open for 3 pitchers. Well, the 2 pitchers that won the jobs are no longer with the team. They designated Johan Ramirez for assignment, and he was one of the ones that won the job there, like I said. But he was ineffective. He was the one, if you remember, with the whole Jeff McNeil incident, with Rhys Hoskins the first weekend of the season. And after everything was settled pretty much, then decides to throw at Rhys Hoskins and then totally failed that and was ejected from the game and got the manager ejected. And again, his stats weren't that good. He overall he pitched 5 innings, gave up 9 hits, 7 earned runs, some walks, and he had a 2.4 WHIP. So not effective, and they let him go. And then also Michael Tonkin, who was the other pitcher that won the second spot. He was designated for assignment at first, but then he was traded actually to the Minnesota Twins for cash. So neither one of those worked out. The good thing about the Mets, though, is, and maybe one of the reasons that these guys were let go, is they do seem to have some decent depth at middle relief. So, and all over baseball, I've always said it seems like those middle relievers are dime a dozen anyway. So, if these guys don't work out, there's plenty of other ones that are not probably going to be any worse than they were. One other thing too that I'll talk about is I was a little surprised with this, and I was kind of impressed. There was a pitcher they have called or named Jose Butto, and they brought him up for a game. They had that doubleheader against Detroit because of the rainouts, and they had him pitch in one of those games, and he actually pitched very well. He started it, and he pitched 6 innings, only gave up 3 hits, 1 earned run. He had 3 walks, but he had 6 strikeouts, and his WHIP was 1 exactly. They sent him right back down, and I was a little surprised with that because they just got rid of Julio Teheran. Again, they're short in starting pitching depth. So I was a little surprised that they sent him back down. I am assuming that the reason they brought him up in the first place was to pitch one of those games in the no-hitter and not strain the rotation too much. But keep an eye on that. I'm curious to see how he does at Syracuse. Jose Butto. And we'll see if he gets any more opportunities potentially in double headers, which, the Mets have one coming up again soon. So we'll see, if he gets more action and if he can maybe end up staying in the rotation. So, that's basically, most of the news there. Again, I'll give some game reports and everything after you give your Yankees news there. But really just kind of fine tuning the bullpen and just seeing, who works there. And again, the starting rotation, perhaps, we got somebody that can help there. So that's basically the news in Mets land. And what about the Yankees? Anything special going on there? Any moves that surprised you or you were not surprised about? I'd be curious to hear.
Well, Joe, the one thing I'm not surprised about is the Yankees getting off to a 10-2 start. But what I am surprised is finding out that the last 4 times, whenever it was, they started out 10-2, they all went to the World Series. So
wow,
it could be a good omen for 2024. We'll see. Obviously, there's a lot of baseball left to be played. But yeah, let's take a look at some of the news with the game recap from the last series, in which the Yankees took 2 out of 3 from their arch nemesis, Mad Vlad Guerrero Jr. and the Blue Jays, and Ernie Clement as well. So in game 1, the Blue Jays won 3-0. The Yankees starting pitchers played well, but they got very little support from the Yankees bats as they were shut out and got cold. However, though, even with that loss, I wasn't worried because the Yankees are still solid in 3 phases of the game. Their starting pitching has been adequate to really well, even without Garrett Cole. Good news about Cole is he's going to be throwing pretty soon, so that's great. Nestor Cortez pitched well. He went 8 scoreless innings in the last game that he pitched. But
you know what it was, Jamie? I think it was the earthquake. That's what messed up the Yankees bats because it was that day. It's fine. I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I'll have you keep going in a second. But I was listening to that game. I was in my car doing some things, and I had the game on, and John Sterling, the radio announcer, and Susan Waldman were talking about it, and they were kind of joking about it. There's like, well, we don't know what's wrong with the Yankees today. There's no rain, there's no wind, there's no snow, and there was an earthquake though, and maybe that could be. So maybe that's one of the reasons. But I'm
I
sorry.
love John. I got some news about John Sterling in my script here, but
Excellent.
anyway, staying on script right now. Uh, the Yankees are still great in all phases of the game. The starting pitcher rotation is fantastic, minus Cole, as I mentioned. Positive, Cole's coming back. But their bullpen pitching actually has had to do a lot of work. And it's kind of the same thing with your Mets, Joe, but it's also around the league where all these pitching injuries. Luckily, the Yankees really only had one. But the weird thing is that the bullpen has actually not done a bad job. But we move on to the next game, and this is where things get really hairy and testy. So the Yankees win a wild one, 9-8, but it really should have just been 9-2 after what happened. So the bats actually came alive in this game. They were better as Soto, Stanton, and Judge were hitting well. The Yankees starting pitcher Clark Schmidt was pulled after 4 2/3 innings of solid starts. But the weird thing is, Joe, this is a whole league problem now. It's like pitchers can't even go last 5 innings anymore. And it's like we already have to put the bullpen in. But you could probably attest to this. But do you remember like my mom's days where the starters would all pitch into the 9th inning, and the only time like a reliever came in is when the starting pitcher got hurt, because there really were relievers didn't exist then.
Not only do I remember those days, but I really miss those days. I said it a couple of weeks ago too. I think that I totally miss those days where the starters went 7, 8 innings. If a starting pitcher only went 5 innings, something was wrong. Either they were hurt or they were ineffective. And, pitch count wasn't an issue. I mean, I'm sure they didn't let them throw a ridiculous amount of pitches, but I've seen games and statistics from games back in the day where pitcher pitched 10 innings. The game went 10 innings and the starting pitcher stayed in the game, pitched 135 pitches, I'm not saying they have to do that now, but I miss the days of that. And it's funny because in those days, it seems like anyway, there were far fewer arm injuries and pitcher injuries than there are now. And as these pitchers are being totally coddled and pitch count, God forbid they throw over a certain amount of pitches and stuff like that. We've never had so many injuries in baseball. And it's since, all this is happening. So again, I long for those days where the starting pitcher pitched 7 innings on average, or 8 innings, or 10 innings, or whatever. And I don't know if we'll ever get those days back, but I certainly miss them.
Yeah, I know you miss them too, and but part of the reason now is because a lot of these MLB prospects at a young age now are being taught to throw major league style pitches like 98 and 99, even 100 miles an hour.
Right.
At a young age. You look at pitchers like Luis Gil for the Yankees who throw over 100, and that Paul Sketz for Pittsburgh who throws 100 miles an hour, and Aroldis Chapman, the former Yankee closer. And it just goes on that all these young guys are throwing these ridiculous fastballs at that age now, whereas they really didn't back then.
Right.
But anyway, moving back on, speaking of the bullpen and a lot of pitches, 135 pitches for the starters, this would be the equivalent to 135 pitches back in the day to today, as bullpen pitcher Luke Weaver had to throw 47 pitches in relief and was pulled because he was just, you could tell he was gassed and just wasn't pulling right. And that cut the lead to 9-5. And then, however, the one rookie pitcher did impress me, and that was Victor Gonzalez. He actually fared better as he threw a nice variety of pitches with that rookie fastball, and he even has a 92-mile-an-hour sinker, which is impressive for a rookie pitcher. And Victor Gonzalez is the one that Jason told me about that the Yankees got from the Dodgers with the Shohei Ohtani deal. So it looks
Okay.
like he's actually panning out
Good.
for the Yankees. So, and that, I guess we move on. And then Clay Holmes had to come in, and it was 9-8, and he had to strike out the last Toronto batter from even tying the game, and the Yankees won 9-8. But that was a brutal ending. But luckily, Game 3 was better as the Yankees won 8-3. They broke a 1-1 tie in the third inning with a Giancarlo with a Stantonian grand slam, Stantonian home run, as John Sterling would say, to make it a 5-1 lead in the third. And Stanton has worked hard all offseason with dieting, losing weight, and changing his swing. And you can tell it's panning. But the one thing is, though, is the media isn't giving him his flowers that they should. Like they're always talking about it's Judge and Soto, Judge and Soto. How about Judge Soto, Stanton media? But guess what? Giancarlo Stanton, he's fine because guess what? Like Miley Cyrus, he's saying to himself, he can buy himself flowers.
Yeah.
Write his name in the sand. And guess what? Nobody can love himself and give him the credit better than he can. Not the media, but you know what I mean.
I like it. I like it. I love the Miley reference there.
So anyway, let me keep this flow show going. So the Yankees bullpen was better, which is good to see. And the starting pitching fell short of 5 innings again, but the starting bullpen pitching was better than Saturday's, which was on Sunday. And the Yankees are still have a hot start and are one of the hottest teams to begin the season at 10-2. And this is currently 8-19 while they're playing a primetime game against as we speak. So
excellent.
Yeah, nevertheless, they're hot to begin the year. So
yes.
And then as for our injury updates, the Yankees added Jonathan Loizaga on the 60-day injured list. The relief pitcher had an MRI on Thursday, April 4th, that showed significant forearm strain. And because of Loizaga's right flexor elbow strain, the Yankees did call up Dennis Santana from AAA, and I like Dennis Santana. One thing the Yankees are really good at, all these young bullpen pitchers, they're all southpaws. They're all lefties. I wonder what their thought is with that. It's kind of interesting. Maybe it's strategic. I mean, I don't know. It's really cool to see.
It could be.
Yeah. And like I said, speaking of Garrett Cole, there's good news on him. As on April 8th, he played catch, completing 25 throws and 60 feet on flat ground. So, and then he will have 2 more outings the week of April 8th through the 14th, which we could get him back. This pitching rotation could really be solid.
Definitely.
And he's a guy before his injury that could go deep into games. So hopefully he can still do that when he comes back. And if he can, that'll at least show the Yankees have one guy that could go deep.
Right. Yeah, they might not pitch him too deep into games when he first gets back. You know, they might want to start him slow. But, yeah, he's one of the few pitchers in baseball that can still go deep into games like that.
It's going to be spring training for him where they just try to work up his pitch count.
Right, which is the wise thing to do.
Exactly. The Yankees also did acquire Josh Majewski to a major league contract and added the left-handed pitcher to the roster again. Another southpaw reliever added to the contract to the roster, the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then, which means they sent down Jake, not DeMarcus Boogie Cousins, but Jake Cousins to AAA Scranton. And now moving on to DJ LeMahieu. As of April 1st, LeMahieu has been fielding ground balls, hits right-handed, has been running around 90% force. If they could get him to 100% force, that'll be great. As Oswaldo Cabrera has done great as a utility player, and so is John Birdie, but we definitely want LeMahieu back, which will add even more depth and bring his veteran experience and hitting power and contact hitting and clutch hitting as well, as he's known to be clutch his time with the Yankees.
Right.
Yeah. So then yesterday, Yankees manager Aaron Boone said that LeMahieu has been using side-to-side movements like Ariana Grande. He's been moving side to side and skills like that. So he's been moving in a pretty good direction. He will also have another MRI taken around April 12th, and then we'll need to have a minor league rehab assignment when cleared. So all is good in the Yankee news there. So I'm going to turn it over back to you, Joe. Joe, Mets
Yeah,
news.
let's talk about some good stuff. And you know, the good Yankee teams in the past. What surprises me a little bit is this great start. Now I know every team is different, but I remember even back, you know, even the early 2000s, the 90s, 80s. Seems like the Yankees always got off to bad starts, you know, and people that root against the Yankees, you know, would always get excited in April and May. And it's like, wow, the Yankees are going to be out of it this year, and then you know they're not in the picture. And then during the summer, they go like on a 45-5 streak, and they're unbeatable, and they go to the rest of the season and cruise, you know, to the end and win championships. So very interesting to see what happens here. You know, the fact that they got off to such a start, um, and we'll see. You know, if they have those excellent summers like they usually have. But as far as the Mets, again, there's a little bit of relief in Mets land. Again, there's still a long way to go here, but you know, this week since we talked last, I mean, the Mets went 4-3. And you might not think 4-3 is so great after, you know, a 0-5 start. But, you know, I calculated this. I said, you know, if they go 4-3 every 7 games to the end of the season, we're talking about an 88 win season at this point. And I'll take 4-3 going on streaks the rest of the way here and put themselves in that position where I believe, you know, based on this wild card format, you win 88 games, you're probably getting in as a wild card. So, do I expect the Mets to win 88 games? Realistically, no. But again, impossible? No. They could certainly do that. So they won 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati on the road, playing their first road games. Cincinnati is a decent team. We know that, and they're up and coming. And now to take the opening game in the Brave series, I think is amazing. You know, we were talking backstage. It's like, hey, the Mets won a game, and I told Jamie backstage. I said it's a 4-game series, and even if the Mets lose the next 3, I'll still be satisfied with a win in Atlanta. The Mets never win in Atlanta. The Braves have their number there, and especially that the Braves being the superior team now. So the fact that the Mets took a game in that series, I'm okay if they lose the next ones. And again, if they can steal another one there, I think that would be amazing. Some players here. Brandon Nimmo is officially awake, Mets fans. He started awful. I think I said he was 1 for his first 19, had like an 091 batting average. Well, this week he had 2 home runs, 8 RBIs. He's the team leader in RBIs at this point with 8. Also had 7 walks, so he's getting on base like you know, like we're used to Brandon Nimmo doing. So this week, a 318 batting average, 500 on base percentage, and a 1.136 OPS. So definitely an excellent week for Brandon Nimmo, making up for the horrible start. And again, now leading the team in RBIs. Brett Beatty continues his impressive start, a 776 OPS. Yeah, so he's doing well. Excuse me, you were talking about utility players before. One of the Mets utility players that they brought in, Tyrone Taylor. First of all, getting some decent playing time, and deservedly so, with a 304 batting average this week and a 751 OPS. You know, 700 OPS is not amazing, but it's good, and it's above average. So the fact that guys like Beatty and Taylor are doing that, I think that's pretty awesome. You got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde named Pete Alonso. Still struggling pretty much. Now, he did have 2 home runs and 5 RBIs this week. So he's the team leader in home runs with 3. But 13 strikeouts this week. And I got some other statistics from him. 235 OPS, which certainly not going to cut it. So he'll get out of that, but definitely struggling. Taking a look at some pitchers here. Again, some of these middle relief guys. Reed Garrett, again, not a household name, but maybe one of the reasons that some of these other bullpen guys are out. Reed Garrett pitched 5 innings this week. Got a win in one of the games. Only gave up 3 hits, did not give up an earned run. And in those 5 innings, had 9 strikeouts and a .94 whip. So that's good. And players hit 176 against them. So excellent middle relief there. Starting pitching, we were concerned about that. And some of these new pitchers that they got, Severino and Quintana and people like that, weren't very impressive in their first starts. However, in their second starts, nice turnaround. Luis Severino, 5 innings pitched, only gave up 3 hits, a run, 7 strikeouts during that time. His whip was right at one. People or players only hit 158 against him. So an excellent start for Severino. Same with Quintana. He pitched 5 2/3 innings, gave up a run, 5 hits. He gave up some walks, and they hit 287 against him, but still much better performance than he had before. Sean Manaea did have an excellent first start, and he won his second start by pitching 5 innings, 3 hits, only a run given up, 6 strikeouts, only 188 batting average against him. The concern there, Adrian Hauser, somebody they picked up as a 5th starter kind of person. He's had 2 rough starts. He lost this week. His 2 starts so far, he's pitched 10 innings, given up 11 hits, 6 earned runs, 1.6 whip, and the players are hitting 289 against him. So hopefully he can bounce back in his next couple of games here. The Trumpets were playing again. Edwin Diaz closing games. He had 2 saves this week. 2 saves this week. He pitched 3 innings, 5 strikeouts, .33 whip. So he's not giving up hits and walks, and pitching just as well. I was very curious as to how he was going to come back after that injury, but he is right where he was in his, excellent his potentially Cy Young season a couple of years ago. So definitely a great start so far. So as far as team leaders, Pete Alonso is the team leader in home runs so far this season with 3. So again, he's doing his job there. He's just, got to get things going. I was looking at some of the strikeout rates here. Pete Alonso is striking out in 30% of his at-bats. 1 out of every 3 at-bats, basically, he's striking out. So not making contact there. Brandon Nimmo, as I said before, is the RBI leader with 8. Francisco Alvarez with a 793 OPS. Again, I'm Mr. OPS. I love talking about that stat. It's a great combination of on-base percentage, hits, and extra base hits and things like that. So almost 800 for Alvarez, doing well there. Brett Beatty leading the team in hits with 13. So making good contact there. He's got a 325 batting average. So this is somebody who struggled to make contact last year and was sent down to the minors for a while because he was struggling to make contact. Not so much this year. And he's hitting righties and he's hitting lefties. One of the biggest home runs he hit this season was against the left-handed pitcher, where the Mets were down big. They were down like 7-2 in the game against Milwaukee. And Beatty came back and he hit a 3-run homer to get the Mets back in it. Alonso ended up hitting a home run, and they ended up losing the game 7-6. So Beatty's hitting righties, he's hitting lefties, 325 batting average. Now, some people still struggling here. Jeff McNeil, he did hit a home run, but he's still only hitting 156. And, what is going on with Lindor? He did hit a home run as well, had 2 RBIs, but he's still only hitting .089. He's not under the Mendoza line. He's under the, I don't know what you call the 100 line, but he's still under that. only hitting 089. So I don't know what's happening now. The silver lining with McNeil and Lindor is they're making contact. Jeff McNeil has only struck out 3 times in 32 at bats. So again, he's making contact. And so what that means is, to me anyway, is eventually those hits are going to find holes, and that average will go up. Now Lindor, same thing. He's only struck out 6 times in 45 at bats. McNeil struck out 3 in 32, like 9% strikeout rate. And again, Lindor struck out 6 times in 45 at bats, a 13% strikeout rate. So that's not a bad strikeout rate. And hopefully they'll start turning it around, and some of those hits will find holes. That compares to Pete Alonso, who I just said has a 30% strikeout rate. So you could see the difference there. That's a concern, obviously, with them. So looking forward now this week, the Mets, I'm going to be very curious to see. They got 2 more games against the Braves, and one of them was rained out tonight. So, tonight's game, I guess you told me earlier it's going to be a doubleheader because they got a game tomorrow afternoon. So they'll play the 2 games tomorrow, and then they come home this weekend against Kansas City. Now, again, that I compare Kansas City to a team like Detroit. Those are teams the Mets should be beating, especially coming home to do that. And that's what made me so concerned about the first a couple of series. I mean, you're getting swept by the Brewers, who are not supposed to be a good team this year. Now, again, we may see down the road that they are. I mean, they're playing great baseball even now after that Mets series. So maybe people were wrong about them. Same with the Tigers. I mean, people are saying the Tigers are going to be an improved team. But when you're playing at home, you got to win 2 out of 3 in those series. So my goal for the Mets, and I'm sure it's their goal too, take 2 out of 3 against the Royals. And then they have now, darn it, I didn't write this down and I'm blanking, but another series against a subpar team coming in. And I'm going to have to look that up. I had it in my head and I didn't write it down. And I'm not going to remember this, but I remember it being a team that they should beat 2 out of 3 at home. So if they can win 4 out of 6 here on this homestand, I think they're going to be in good shape and continue hopefully playing well going forward. So a little bit more reason for optimism here for the Mets. Again, get some of these guys going, and hopefully, again, like guys like Beatty can keep it up, and some of these, again, if somebody gets hurt, to have a guy named Tyrone Taylor there and helping out and staying consistent, and Brandon Nimmo being the leadoff hitter that he is, and having the kind of week like he had this week. Who knows? Again, take 4 out of 6 on this homestand at least, and you're definitely going in the right direction.
Yeah, like you said, got to beat the Royals, got to beat the Tigers again. So, but anyway, Joe, you said Lindor was batting 089.
Yes.
You said, well, guess what? He's doing great if his goal is to be in a remake of this old New York Lottery commercial back in the day where they ask about this one player with the manager.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, well, the guy's only batting 027 on the entire season. And then the reporter goes, doesn't matter that he bought the team, meaning because he bought him with the lottery. And the manager goes, next question. But at least 089 for Francisco Lindor, it's a real player, and it's not a fictional commercial where he has to buy the Mets,
That's right. I do remember that commercial, and I thought it was hilarious too. I remember that. Lindor is not going to stay hitting 089 for long. We know that. And again, he's making contact. So, that the stats prove that. So I just looked, it's the Pirates that come in after the Royals. So again, the Pirates are playing good baseball here. They're off to a great start. But again, I think, when you compare, I think the Mets are a better team than the Pirates, to be honest with you, even though maybe the Pirates are playing better now. So playing at Citi Field, you take 2 out of 3 if you're the Mets in that series. So again, 4 out of 6, and I'll be very happy with that. And
Both
then
teams are
they better
young
win those
too.
games, because then they take their first West Coast road trip. They got 3 against the Dodgers in LA, and then 3 against the Giants in San Francisco. So tough road trip coming up after that. So you almost have to take 4 out of 6 of those home games.
Right, and like I said, the Pirates and the Mets, both teams are young, so it's going to be a battle of two young teams. It'll be a hard-fought game, a competitive series. Hopefully, this homestand with that they got is all going to probably be competitive. We'll see, even with the Royals. But anyway, we have some comments, Joe, that I want to talk about
Awesome.
before you turn it over to me. So we actually have a comment from one of my awesome, fantastic forkball workers, Miss Julie Miller. And Julie said, "What about them Yankees? Good to see you guys. It's fine Wednesday evening. And it's good to hear a comment from you, Julie. And thank you for mentioning me in my UFL story, in your UFL story. And I tagged it right back at you. So we helped each other out there. And anyway, we have another comment from my father, Kevin, aka the sales PR guy, also a wonderful guy, by the way. He said, "Great overview, dudes. Nice overview, especially Dr. Jekyll. Thanks, Pops. I appreciate it for that comment there." And
Yeah, we very much appreciate those.
Yep. And then we also the Back It Up Bench podcast commenting again, the Orioles podcast. And I think Mets fans, but Joe, you almost forgot JD Drew is or not JD Drew, JD
Davis.
No, JD what's his name? From the JD from the Dodgers. He says looking forward to JD getting into the lineup.
Oh yeah, Martinez coming.
JD Martinez, thank you. I could not get the name. It was I said JD Drew, and I was like, that's an old baseball name. So it's JD Martinez is with the Mets now. Thank you, back it up for helping me there. And he says the Royals are tough. Yes, it is. The Royals might be tougher than they are. And yeah, what do you think, Joe? Did you forget, or did Mets fans forget JD Martinez was on the team and he still has to get into the lineup?
Yeah, no, I didn't forget about that. I wasn't sure exactly when he was going to be coming to the Mets. I know he was in Syracuse and playing there and getting ready, and that's basically his spring training. So, yeah, I mean, all Mets fans, believe me, are looking forward to him getting in the lineup. So that'll definitely make a difference, and hopefully he can contribute there. So, I guess we'll see. But and just depth is always good. That's something that certainly helps in a guy of JD Martinez caliber. Certainly I'd rather have JD Martinez than JD Drew at this point. So we'll see. And again, maybe they'll have him when they go on that trip to LA. And because he played with the Dodgers recently, so he's a little more familiar with Dodger Stadium there. I was going to say something too about the Royals. The fact last year, I mean, a young team. And again, they're definitely improving and definitely making some waves, playing some good baseball now. But I know last year they really struggled on the road. And that's another reason I keep saying this, and I hate to keep repeating myself, but another reason that the Mets have to win these games, because the Royals are not a very strong road team at this point still. And a golden opportunity for the Mets, and having to win home games. Starting the season at home 1-5. Certainly is not good for your cause. So if they can, to change that record for the better, that would certainly help. Again, not to take anything away from the Royals, because, they're playing good ball and they're going to just continue to improve as the season goes on. And so are the Pirates. I mean, Pirates are off to a great start, and they're starting to believe. And if these young teams start believing in themselves, they keep winning games with these young players. That accelerates like a snowball and it keeps going. So certainly I'm not saying these games are going to be easy. I'm not saying these are bad teams by any means, but just you got to hold serve in your home stadium and get back on track that way and beat these teams that I think they should beat, at least 2 out of 3 in each series.
Right. So yeah, thank you, Joe, for that. So Anyway, I have a story that is going to actually cover both the Mets and the Yankees. So you might want to sit back and listen to this one, Joe.
Awesome.
It's about Yankees' current superstar, their bargain discounted superstar, Juan Soto. Where will he end up signing? Well, anyway, with Juan Soto starting out well for the Yankees, we as Yankee fans are very pleased that we have him on our team. And we would like to sign the All-Star to a long-term deal after next year. Even our popular play-by-play announcer of the Yankees, John Sterling, had something to say about the team owner, Hal Steinberger, signing Soto to an extension as he appeared on WFAN, which is the New York Yankees radio network driven by Jeep, on Friday. And he quotes, "If the Yankees are really great this year and go deep into the playoffs, I don't see how they couldn't sign Soto," Sterling told host Brandon Tierney and Sal Lakota, as shared by Ryan Chichester of Odyssey. Before you say, wait, that's going to cost a lot of money, the Yankees have a lot of money.
Right.
End quote. So anyway, if Soto obtains free agency after the 2024 World Series, the cost for the 25-year-old could start at $500 million, $500 million. So it is rumored that Stephen Cohen, owner of the New York Mets, is also interested in Soto and could bring up Soto's salary expectations by making a play for him too. And we quote, "If you make it here, I hate to use the cliche, but it's a big thing if you're a Yankee and playing right field," Sterling continued. Babe Ruth played right field for the Yankees. Reggie Jackson played right field for the Yankees. If the Yankees are good this year, I don't know how he could go anywhere else and achieve what you could achieve being on center stage in New York. End quote. So, Joe, after hearing all this, what do you think about your Mets making an offer for Soto? And is there any chances of Soto going to the Mets, or do you think he's going to want a big payday with the Yanks?
Kind of tough to tell now. I mean, certainly the Mets are not afraid to spend money, as they have shown, with the highest payroll in all of baseball. And certainly, I think would make a pitch for Juan Soto. I mean, any team would want to have him on their team. Certainly, the Yankees have the same capabilities, and again, with him being there now, certainly would have the best chance, I think, to retain him. And I'm going to say something. I like to be objective. Now, as a Mets fan, would I like to have Juan Soto on my team? Of course. I think he would add so much to that lineup. You imagine having a lineup with him and Pete Alonso and, some of the guys that they have there. I mean, that would be a killer lineup. But like I said, I like to be objective, and I'm not saying I want this to happen. But the truth is, I think the best place for Juan Soto is with the Yankees, simply because of, again, being there now, and especially if he has a successful season there with them and the team has a successful season with him there. That's the start of it. And whether they win a championship this year or come close, I think if in the near term anyway, he's going to have a better chance to win a World Series with them than he would with the Mets. Not saying that it's going to be eons for the Mets, because, they'd make the right moves. They can get themselves right back in position too. I just think Yankee Stadium is a better hitter's park than Citi Field. We've had some big hitters come to Citi Field and struggle just because of the dimensions, even though they've been moved in. But, I think the best place for him is with the Yankees, to be honest with you. And again, I'm not saying that I like saying that. So if there's any Mets fans here that are calling me crazy or calling for my head and say, how dare you say that? I'm not saying I want it to happen. I'm just trying to be objective and honest here. And again, I would take him on my team any day. And I think he would make a world of difference for the Mets. And can they get him, and would they make a pitch for him? I think the answer is yes to both those questions. I think probably best for him with the Yankees, and I certainly think the Yankees will make a strong pitch to keep him and do all they can to keep him on the team as long as things continue to go well.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I Agree with that. I think Soto should stay on the Yankees, and the Yankees have money. I mean, look at what they paid A-Rod back in the day, able to keep him, and look at what the Dodgers paid Shohei Ohtani. So the Yankees should definitely fork up some cash for Soto if they want to.
Right.
So anyway, in other baseball news around the league, or around the MLB, on Monday's series opening win against the Milwaukee Brewers, Ali De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds hit an inside the park home run at the Great American Ballpark. De La Cruz hit was the first inside the park home run of his MLB career. So, and I think it has to do with the bigger bases allowing for him to run faster and allow for more speed too. Not to say that he wouldn't have done that with the smaller bases. It's just a coincidence. It's happening more now with the pitch clock. But anyway, according to the team, they said that he ran base from home to home in 14.96 seconds. It was also his second home run of the game as he blasted 450 feet in the fifth inning. And to use a spring football player, Boogie Roberts, he hit one outside of the park home run, and then he hit one inside of the park home run. Home run on the outside, home run on the inside. And then the talented athlete is the first Cincinnati Reds player to hit an over-the-fence home run and inside the park home run, hit a homer from both sides of the plate. Like I said, hit it from the left side, hit it from the right side. Have a stolen base, and have 4+ runs scored, all while being the first player in MLB history to do it all in the same game. So, Joe, what do you think about De La Cruz running the bases at 14.96 speed?
Well, it's funny because I was watching that game live. I had it on. I had a bet on the Brewers that game, so I figured, okay, I'm going to watch that game. And I watched De La Cruz. Now, I didn't see the inside the park home run. I saw the first one. He was just on a tear that entire game. And the Reds were destroying the Brewers in that game. So I was like, well, I lost this, and I shut it off. So I didn't even see the inside the park home run because I got frustrated. I put something else on and wasn't watching it. But De La Cruz was just on fire that entire game. I think he made a couple of good fielding plays too. But he had a hit, and I saw the home run, the out of the park home run. But I missed the inside the parker just because I had turned the game off at that point. But definitely one of the most exciting players in baseball. I watched him in a few games last year. He's very impressive and fast and can hit with power, obviously, too. So definitely one of the players that make the Reds one of the more exciting teams. I thought last year they were one of the most exciting teams in baseball. They were fun to watch. And again, I get, thanks to T-Mobile, I get MLB TV for free. So I get the chance to sample some of the games and watch some of these players that around Major League Baseball. So, got to see him play a few times last year. I've got to see him play this game here. So definitely one of the more exciting players in baseball. And players like this, you like to see succeed, especially on these small market teams that are just exciting. The Orioles were another one of those teams last year, and they're picking up right where they left off. And I'm not going to steal your thunder because you may be talking about the Orioles next, but they made some news today. But so it just players like that are just fun to watch and just make baseball that much better to watch.
Mm-hmm. So you're not going to steal my thunder. Feel the thunder. Joe won't steal my thunder. Okay. Well, I love that. Lightning and the thunder. Anyway, moving on. So guess what, Joe? Now you do have a chance to now I got a chance to steal your thunder here. So guess what? It is now that time in our show for our question of the week segment. Your favorite, Joe.
I was wondering if our audience could tell that my blood pressure just doubled right now. So we'll see. I'm over. I'm kind of like Francisco Lindor here this year with trivia questions, except he's hitting 089. I'm hitting 000.
Anyway, would you like to give it a try, Joe? And like Soundgarden, or unlike Soundgarden, I hope you don't break your rusty cage with your high blood pressure. That's a rock song from back in the 90s on Road
Mhm.
Rash by Soundgarden. It was called Rusty Cage. So anyway, would you like to give the question a try? I'm focused, Jamie. Back to our regular schedule program. Would you like to give this
Back to the
question?
regular schedule program. Yes, of course, I want to give it a try. Even though I get the trivia questions wrong, I do truly enjoy this part of the show because I love trivia and definitely willing to give it a shot here. So let's go.
Okay, so Joe, here is your question. Can you guess this MLB player? He had 6 40-plus home run seasons, had a career of 462 home runs, and is not in the Hall of Fame. And we know why most players aren't in the Hall of Fame, even though they should
Mhm.
be, is because it was done by the Writers Association, but not anymore, as the players get to do it now. So,
Mhm.
is it Fred McGriff, Jason Giambi, DiGiamino, Jose Canseco, or Adam Dunn?
All right. So this player had 640 home run seasons.
Yes.
Okay. And then if you could repeat some of the other information.
Had a career of 462 home runs and is
All right.
not in the Hall of Fame, even though he should be.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with my hunch, and my hunches have been wrong. I am going to say Jose Canseco.
Nope, it was Adam Dunn.
Adam Dunn, really, because that's I almost made a comment here saying, well, I definitely don't think it's Adam Dunn. But it was. Wow, I didn't realize he had 640 home run seasons. I know he had some great years with the Reds there, but I guess no. Okay. My offer continues here, but we will get her. I'm definitely going to get off the schneid here very, very soon, and
You
then I'm going to
will.
go on a major streak and make up for my ineptitude so far
Like
when it comes.
baseball, 162 games, Joe. Trivia questions, luck and law of average, too. So.
That's right. So it'll average out here.
Mhm.
But I don't know if you saw it, Jamie. Now, like I said, I didn't know if this was on your list, so I didn't want to steal it from you. But the number one prospect in MLB in the pipeline, as they say, was just called up into the majors.
Roy
Mr.
Holiday's son, Jackson, right?
Yes, Jackson Holliday, who is Matt Holliday's son,
Matt
has been the
Holiday's
number
son.
one prospect with the Orioles, and he played well in the spring, but they sent him down right before the season started. But now I just heard today that he got called up, so I'm very curious to see. He was
I think he
tearing
should
it
have been
up.
on the opening day roster to begin with. What about
I
you?
I definitely think he should have been on the opening day roster, and then he proved that in the minors. I mean, he was tearing it up. I think he was hitting 400, I don't know, or close to it. So I think he should have been on there all along. So definitely looking forward to watching him play with the amazing, talented team that the Orioles have. I've watched a couple of their games, and it seems like a different guy steps up all the time. I was watching one game that they were losing, and then Westberg, a guy who's one of the unsung guys, but pretty solid, hit like a game-winning home run in that game. That was like the first week of the season, and they've had some other, it seems like a different guy stepping up. Santander, stepped up the one game, and just a whole bunch of guys that they have that are, exciting players. And the Orioles are definitely one of the most exciting teams in the league.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And our last news story of the night, and we talked about this backstage. And guess what, folks? Joe and I are gonna actually have to agree to disagree on this one because it looks like the 2024 season will be the last one played for Oakland A's in the city of Oakland. I think this move was long overdue. Them moving to Vegas. I mean, Oakland's basically a regressing city. Lot of crime problems and just losing population. But anyway, the team will be moving to Las Vegas in 3 years to their new stadium, which is predicted to be where the old Tropicana Field or the Tropicana Hotel is. They're going to
Mhm.
tear that down and build a ballpark in the middle of that. A retractable roof ballpark too. So yay, another one of those deals.
Yep, just like
But
Arizona has, and
yep,
baseball in 110 degrees is not fun. So
yep,
it's a good move.
yep. But anyway, in the meantime, the A's will play their 2025-2027 seasons at Sutter Health Park in Sacramento. Now, this is going to bring in a lot of money for West Sac. It's actually a West Sacramento, which is still going to bring in a lot of money for the city as a whole, because that stadium is a lot smaller than the Oakland Coliseum that the A's are used to playing at. It's a minor league ballpark that holds up to 14,000 fans when they sold out. But don't worry, Oakland fans, you've been lucky to get over 6,000 fans in a ballpark that seats like 30,000, the Oakland
Right.
Coliseum, which was a former NFL stadium, by the way, with the Raiders. You shared
Mhm.
that stadium, and it was for their first 6 home games this season. The team does have an option for the 2028 season in case their new stadium isn't finished. So, Joe, do you think that there's anything Oakland could do to really get any more fans in the stands in Sacramento?
No, it's a sad situation because I'm a traditionalist. I know, I agree with moving forward when it's needed, but I'm a traditionalist. And growing up, Oakland was like a sports hotspot. The A's were winning championships. The Raiders won a couple. They just lost the Warriors too. I mean, they only went across the bay, but we were talking about that, and I can understand not staying in Oakland. Now, I have a good friend who has a way with words, and when the Raiders were having their stadium built in Las Vegas and still playing games in Oakland, he kind of compared it to this. He said, "Okay, imagine this. Imagine that you're going to divorce your wife, and you tell her, though, I'm not going to divorce you for a couple of years. But in the meantime, you're still going to do my laundry. You're still going to cook for me, and you're still going to clean my house. But in a couple of years, I'm going to divorce you." It's kind of the same when the Raiders were there playing football games in Oakland. It was like the same thing. They knew they were going to leave. They knew they were going to divorce, but yet they were still expecting fans to show up at games. And, even though they were on their way out, yeah, we still expect you to pay our tickets prices and our concessions and this and that, even though, again, we're divorcing you and we're leaving. So it would kind of be the same with the A's. I'm not crazy about them playing in a minor league ballpark, but at the same time, I think it's better, if somebody's going to divorce, for example, it's not best to stay in the same house. You separate and until the divorce is final. So I guess this is a comparison to that. They're not staying in the same house until the divorce happens. They're moving out, separated until it's final, and they move into their permanent home in Las Vegas. So although I'm not crazy about the idea, and I will certainly miss baseball in Oakland simply because of the history. And, it's not like the A's haven't had good teams since those 70s World Series. I mean, they had potential World Series teams plenty of times after that. I mean, they did win one in the late 80s and had those great teams with Canseco and Henderson and all them. But even in the 90s, or, in the 2000s, they had chances to win World Series here with good rosters that, again, because of the payroll, eventually those guys left. But they've had potential World Series teams recently. So it's not like it's ancient history that these teams were good and that baseball in Oakland was relevant. It's just the last couple of years since they had to blow it up the last time that they've been as awful as they are. So I certainly miss and will miss baseball in Oakland. But I think the best case scenario in this situation is to play those games in Sacramento. And Sacramento's trying to put on a show, I guess, for other sports. I mean, they would love to have the A's permanently, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I think if Major League Baseball has to choose between Sacramento and Las Vegas, nothing against Sacramento, but it's an obvious choice, I think, as far as which one is the most up and coming and the best place for them to go. But again, it's good for the city of Sacramento to get the A's for a couple of years there. And I think just the least messy way to end this situation and the relationship in Oakland there.
Yeah, but Joe, the one thing you also, as a traditionalist, you know this though too. Growing up back in those days, you also got to remember the city's climate wasn't as bad as it is now too. That's why they were able to field teams and everything as well. So that's why.
Yeah, it was a lot more vibrant and economically positive, than it is now. Again, not to knock the city of Oakland, but things have changed, and unfortunately, it's affected, the sports landscape in the city there as well.
Like I said, and plus Vegas is an up and coming city. The economic climate's better there. More stuff's coming there too, and things like that. So
Yeah, definitely.
And besides you, if you asked other people, majority of the people, would you rather play in Oakland or Las Vegas? The people that don't live in Oakland are going to say Vegas because it was always an entertainment capital, and then you add sports to it.
Right.
So, but like I said, as we said, folks, we were going to agree to disagree on this one because usually Joe and I agree on a lot, but when we do disagree, we have civil conversations like this, which is wonderful.
Definitely. It would be boring if we agreed on everything.
Right. Exactly. You got to have sports shows and podcasts in today's media where you have disagreement. That's how
right.
I believe in that. The diverse thought and everything. So, well, it looks like we've come to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you in the social media climate on April 10th, 2024?
April 10th. Wow, this year is more than a quarter over already, and it just started. Anyway, you can find me on Joe Dell Sports on X Twitter. Just my takes on things going on around the sports world.
Thank you, Joe. And then, as always, you can find me, yours truly, on Bill's Chat 1, at Bill's Mafia Chat, and at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X, and then theforkball.com, where I read about all sports now. And before we wrap this up, folks, we just want to say please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Driving to the Top Productions, and always tune in every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, wherever you get your podcast or wherever you want to listen or watch your podcast. So thank you much for very listening, folks. And as they used to say, to quote the Mets or Sportsnet New York in 2005, 2006, like the Mets, get your New York sports here next Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock. See you next week, folks.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for watching.
You too.